and that is they're from the governor's task force on AI. He developed a council right after he got elected to look at the issue of AI in general, beyond just education, but also in all of state government. And so I'm pleased to introduce Chris Rippenham and Sophia Dickus. They're going to walk us through a presentation about. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you all. I'm Chris Brittingham, IT policy analyst with NCDIT. I've been with the state for about 2.5 years now. And then when DIT stood up the Office of AI and Policy, I was brought up under the office. And Sophia was also brought onto the team as well. See? There we go. Okay. Okay. So what we'll be talking about is the North Carolina AI Leadership Council, which was enacted as part of an executive order back in September. There are a few different parts of it, being the AI Leadership Council, an innovation lab that was also stood up, and then oversight committees that are throughout the agencies. So the overall vision when we talk about the AI Leadership Council is transform North Carolina into a leading state for AI. That's very broad. So that can mean a lot of different things, around both innovation, responsibility, and making sure we're using AI ethically. But really, what we're looking at, that first sentence there under one of the state's goals, harness AI's potential while safeguarding public trust, ensuring that all North Carolina benefits from its use. So we're looking at not just implementing AI for the sake of having AI, but we want everything that we do around AI to have a measurable, beneficial impact on North Carolinians. I know here we're focused on child safety, and that extends to child safety as well. As we talk through some of our objectives, our goals, and the different areas that we focused on, child safety is kind of wrapped up throughout that. But the safety of North Carolinians as a whole. So our responsibilities: advise the governor, promote AI literacy, ensure responsible AI use, and position North Carolina as a national leader. As you'll see throughout all of these, we're focused on the responsibility, the ethics of AI. So we're not just trying to roll out AI throughout the state, but promoting AI literacy. And I know Vera had mentioned this as well. AI literacy here, we talk about training across the public workforce. We're not just focused on training the public workforce, but one of the questions that was brought up was how can we get parents talking to their kids about AI? And one of our goal areas is focused on community upskilling. Community upskilling isn't just teaching the community how to use AI in their jobs, but also teaching parents how to use AI, teaching parents how to talk about AI, teaching senior citizens how to use and talk about AI, so that people can all talk about it the same. They have that base level of AI literacy that they understand, and they can talk, whether it's in their work, in their daily lives. But then, they're still able to ensure responsible AI use. They understand how to use it responsibly. And then what we're actually physically tasked to do. So when we started in September, we were tasked to develop an AI strategic roadmap. So that is due June 30th of this year. It's a 3-year roadmap for the responsible use of AI in the state. You'll see the 4 areas that we'll focus on a little bit later. But then throughout all of our areas, we are developing policy, workforce readiness. We're collaborating with different stakeholders. So stakeholders being here in the student safety and well-being. We also have the NC Works Commission that we were talking to that can help with career transitions for students going into the workforce, for people transitioning their careers in the workforce. And then equity and trust, making sure that we have a plan to get everything that we're doing to all communities equally. So we're not just focused on the tech sector. We are looking at rural communities, how we can impact them, provide beneficial trainings, AI literacy, and these workforce options to all communities. Just to highlight, I understand this is a little bit of an eye chart. You can see the left-hand side of the council members. These are called out in the executive order, and these are just the overall the breakdowns of the council members. So we have our co-chairs who are NCDIT and Commerce. That's because not only are we working in technology, but we're also working in the commerce sector, making sure we are providing benefits to the workforce. We're training up the workforce so that everyone understands and has the ability to work in an AI-enabled economy. As you look down there, we have private sector representatives, energy, state budget, We have 4 members of higher education representatives. We also have a K through 12 representative here in the room that just gave that presentation. Is actually on the AI Leadership Council as well. And then we also have members of General Assembly who are represented within the Leadership Council. On the right-hand side, this is something we're very proud of. We have recruited out of the universities in the state. We focus on North Carolina universities. So we have 23 different graduate researchers across 7 different universities here in the state. So we extended this offer to all universities so that we could pick out students who are interested in AI. They have some type of background around AI. They may be studying around ethics. They may be studying around actually using AI. But we have recruited 23 graduate researchers who are helping us develop a few things for the Leadership Council. A background in all of our different topic areas, a baseline assessment. So when we look at K through 12, when we look at the workforce as it is now, when we look at the technology that's being used to transform and innovate in the state, we have assigned these students to help gather a baseline of where North Carolina is at in all these areas right now. And then the last thing is developing a resource map. So both within North Carolina and statewide, how what kind of resources we have to make sure we can achieve the goals that we set out, actually accomplish the strategies that we are working toward, but building out that resource map to make sure that we are able to actually accomplish our goals. The guiding principles that we've been focused on, and again, you'll see here, we are focused very much on responsibility and making sure that we're doing things that's benefit North Carolina. Leadership and trustworthy AI, AI literacy, workforce empowerment, and then the next 4 are really focused in making sure that we're doing things responsibly. Explainability, interpretability, accountability, and transparency. Do we understand how AI is being used? Do we understand how AI is impacting our citizens, impacting our students, impacting our children? Security and resiliency, privacy and governance, those 2 kind of go hand in hand, making sure that we're thinking about data protections, data privacy, making sure that, and you'll see this a little bit later on as well, we are able to, kind of do a little bit more when it comes to child safety. So making sure we consider child safety and data privacy of children in the state, and then fairness and protection of civil liberties. So next we'll break down goal areas, but just to give a little background and jump back to this slide very quickly. So those council members were then broken down into 4 different subcommittees. Those subcommittees are talent and workforce, transformation and innovation. So talent and workforce focused on talent and workforce of the state, that's both from the K through 12 level, higher education, people who are currently in the workforce, and then we have transformation and innovation. That's how we can transform and innovate our state government. Technology, data, and infrastructure. That's focused on actually the technology and the infrastructure of the state. Did you see planning around that? And then the last one, which is incredibly important to all the work we're doing, especially the work being done here, is governance and safety. And that focuses a lot on the safety of our residents and the safety of our children and how we can ensure that we are doing everything safely throughout the state, both in the government and for the public. I will turn a little bit of the link.
Awesome. So I'm going to dig into kind of where we're focusing all of our energy on across those 4 subcommittees. So each subcommittee has an objective under which we have a set of goals and then recommendations that tie to the goals, which will be in the final report. We're not going to get into that level of detail because we're still ironing out exactly what those recommendations will look like. But I think these objectives do a really good job of explaining kind of what our focus is in each of these categories. So starting first with talent and workforce, this is really about preparing everyone in the state for the societal change that is going to come with AI. So as Chris mentioned, we are focused at all different levels, whether that's K through 12, and Vera has done a really wonderful job of helping to advise us there. We are focusing our reps on those portrait of the graduate and the AI guidelines that DPI has put out. So you will see that reflected in our recommendations, a lot of support for the concepts that are coming out of those. We look at the workforce in a couple of different ways. We have a few recommendations around how we are going to build skill sets and credentialing across the state, available to everyone through micro credentials. We have some efforts around pipeline to workforce, so really connecting the workforce and the employers with the educators and making sure there are very clear pipelines, especially for entry level jobs, because as we can see right now, entry level jobs are being most significantly impacted by AI at this moment. So really making sure we have clear pipelines on how to get students into the workforce once they're prepared to, at all levels, not just higher education. We're also looking at high school and even community colleges and beyond. We're focused on unemployment here as well. So making sure, while we're doing everything we can in the early years of education to prepare students and young workers, we recognize that there will be people in the workforce that will be impacted as well that we need to account for. And then finally, we're also thinking about just community upskilling in generally and making sure that we are bringing everyone along on this journey in some way, shape, or form. Not everyone will be using AI in the workforce, but AI will affect everyone in their daily lives, whether it's through their children, whether it's through their interactions on social media or just in society broadly. And so we want to make sure we have outlets for bringing everyone aboard, especially our elderly as well. So the next area that we are looking into is transformation innovation. And this is really focused on our services as a government and what we are doing, how we are leveraging AI to better serve the public and better deliver for the public. So this is really about kind of modernizing our service delivery within government, but doing so in a very responsible way. When we talked about that vision, the first thing in that vision is building trustworthy AI, right? Just making things more efficient using AI doesn't necessarily serve the public. We need to find the opportunities that really make a difference for people, where we can trust AI to do a meaningful job and supplement the work that our people in government are delivering, rather than replace or, in some ways detract from the work that our people are doing. So that's the focus of this one. I'm gonna come back to this one because I think this is where we'll spend the most time on. But really quickly, tech data and infrastructure. So this is really the kind of nuts and bolts of making sure that we have everything we need in place as a state to be ready for this moment and this technology. So that means looking at our critical infrastructure, protecting our cybersecurity, making sure that we are giving opportunities for not only the big tech players to access this infrastructure and technology, but making sure we're bringing along our startups, our small businesses, making sure that we are bringing along our universities and being able to access this technology. And as a whole, I would say all of the goals and recommendations in this one, we are trying to find ways in which we can use this infrastructure and these resources to encourage investment in AI that we find to be trustworthy in the state, whether that's through safety research, whether that's through finding areas where we think we can have the external partners come in and help us build on our services that we're offering to the government. So all in all, really thinking about how we can use this infrastructure to build trust and further that safety across the state. And so finally, the last area here is, if it will change, there it goes, governance and safety. So this is really, I think, where we'll spend, spend the most time talking about, because this is where we're really thinking about, in particular, children and child safety. So governance and safety is really all about setting the baseline for what we think the standard needs to be in order to protect everyone in the state. And what does that mean? That means, building confidence that we are using AI ethically as a state, that we are protecting our residents' safety and privacy, and we are doing everything we can to make sure that we are being transparent and accountable as we are going down this journey. So this topic area has 4 different, buckets, I'll call them, that we are focusing our goals and recommendations on. So it's the safe use of AI in government, transparency and accountability. So those 2 are more focused on how we as a government are using AI. And then we have protecting vulnerable populations and fraud, manipulation, and deception. And I think those two buckets are really where we are thinking about how we are going to pursue child safety protections and stuff. So we'll talk a little bit more about what the options are there. The federal government pretty recently put out an AI executive order that would preempt states from taking many actions legislatively when it comes to AI in favor of a national framework. We were waiting for them to put out guidance on what would be acceptable for states to act on from a legislative perspective when it comes to AI. We had hoped that we would have that a little bit before this meeting, but the federal government was delayed, so I think it's just come out like this weekend. But the thing that I will call out in this is that this is just, they're basically threatening our BEAD funding if we try to legislate on things that they do not approve of. But they do have exceptions, and you'll notice this first exception in that executive order from the federal government is child safety. So we think that child safety is the place across all of our initiatives that we're looking at where we actually can probably take some legislative action. And so what we've been doing under that protecting vulnerable populations subcategory is really exploring what would be the right approach to child safety legislation that we think would fit with North Carolina, how we are as a state, how our people perceive AI, and would also be effective. So at this point, many states and also other countries have pursued child safety legislation, and there are a lot of lessons learned from those that we are trying to take and learn from ourselves. So that's the work that we're doing right now, is basically going through and trying to see what is the right approach to this so that it can effectively protect our children. And by the way, a lot of this child safety stuff goes beyond just children, right? Like if you, for example, encourage companies to design their platforms to be less addictive, right? That doesn't just help children, that helps everyone. So that's another reason why we think this is a really good area for us to be thinking about, is because, you know, what we're doing to help our most vulnerable will also help everyone else and lift that standard for everyone else. So I wish I could give you more details on what exactly that would look like. We are in the work right now trying to figure out what that right balance of legislation is. But at the forefront, we know we are prioritizing trustworthiness above all else. We think that in order for this to work, it really needs to be transparent and reliable. And so we're thinking about what the most effective way to do that is without infringing on civil liberties and things like that. And it is a very delicate balance, as you've seen in other states. Some child safety laws have already been litigated, and so we're trying to learn those lessons as well. And we're also referring to experts in this area. We've consulted a few different groups now about what effective child safety legislation would look like. And we've actually been really pleasantly surprised about some of the creative approaches to it that we haven't even seen in other states. Things like product liability laws and consumer protection laws that are already on the books can be leveraged for some of this stuff as well. So that's what we're doing right now. I know, I'm sure you guys all have many questions about the details of that, and as soon as we have more, we're happy to share with you. But I'd love to open the floor for any questions about our approach on AI as a whole. I know we've talked about a lot of things that aren't necessarily pertinent to child safety, but I think it all comes together with this cohesive strategy as a state. And above all else, we want to make sure that we are the most trustworthy state when it comes to AI.
Questions?
I guess so when I think about like technology, like I think there's, obviously we've seen people who've developed AI psychosis, and there's like a balance in like how you do these things. Like I think we accept that AI is going to be here, but it's a question of, I guess to me, like embedding that in like our welfare. So like a number of hours, are we seeing like, you know, use it this much and it's beneficial, and then at a certain point it's diminishing marginal returns? Do you see that in your work, or just curious?
I don't have exact numbers on it. I know that there is a lot of research happening now. I don't think it's a secret that AI can be very addictive. Social media was addictive, and we've seen the impacts of that. I'll say when it comes to like child safety legislation itself, some of the different approaches. So some of the earlier approaches were about like regulating content, right? And that is where you kind of get into some hurdles because of First Amendment, because of Section 230, right? It's hard to regulate content. Some of the newer approaches have a kind of tackled it from this kind of addictive place where it's like, how can we redesign the platform, not necessarily the content, but the platform such that we don't have, infinite chatting, right? We don't have anthropomorphization of these chatbots so people don't feel like they're talking to a real human on the other side of it. And while I don't have exact numbers on like where that threshold is of like, this is how long you can be on it before it becomes harmful. I think the overall consensus is that less is more, right? The less time that you are spending really having these kind of human-like interactions with these technologies, the more that you can kind of have a healthier relationship with it. And so I think, as we've been exploring this, we've really just been considering what are the things that we can do to be reducing that time. But I don't have an exact answer on exactly the number of hours there.
Yeah, I would say along with that, some of the things we talked about along with the anthropomorphizing, some AI technologies have, the ones where they are supposed to be like a companion chatbot, something like that. They do things like, show the little flashing dots so you think someone's really typing back to you. And I think that's something that we're most interested in tackling is taking away the reliance on feeling like you are really talking with a person, because that's where I think a lot of the addiction comes from is feeling like you have that human connection when it may not be.
Can you all just, for the group's benefit, speak to the dangers? I mean, there's people who've been talked into suicide. I understand there have been students who've been talked into causing harm in schools. Just some of the other risks you're seeing with the technology as well.
Yeah, there was an interesting report a few months back in the New York Times that was about someone that was an adult, perfectly well-adjusted adult. I believe they worked on Wall Street or something, that had gone to ChatGPT, I believe it was, for just some information related to their work, and then somehow got sucked in to and it was like a very, very fast downward spiral. And I hope I'm summarizing this. Please go read the article to get the full details. But I think it just really spoke to how easy it is, even for people that are well-adjusted, that don't necessarily have visible mental health issues necessarily, to kind of get sucked in by some of this technology because of the things we've been talking about, because it's like it feels like you're talking to a person. A lot of AI has been shown to really be like very validating of anything that you say. And as humans, we feel an affinity to, people that validate us, right? So like, there's a lot in there, beyond the most extreme cases. And to your point, there are a lot of extreme cases of children that have been convinced into suicide, and the details of that are quite horrific that I don't want to get into. There have been a lot of people with mental health issues that have become especially vulnerable as well to this. And again, it really comes back to that design and how these platforms are meant to feel like you're engaging with another human. And I think it's important to talk about this in the context of like COVID, right? We had many years of being socially distanced, of yearning for social connection. And at the same time or right after that's happening, ChatGPT comes out, and suddenly you have an everyday companion that will talk to you no matter what, and validate you and make you feel good. And I think that, well, I'm not a researcher that can make the exact connection. I do think the timing of it does make sense, in which, we are feeling more socially distanced. We're looking for that connection. And now there's a technology that is suddenly able to give us that connection. And that affects everyone, not just our most vulnerable.
The group that's working on transformation and innovation, kind of looking at state government and internally and how what is their approach? Are they starting with problems and looking for solutions? Are they just going like state department by state department? Like what what does that approach look like? Cause I mean, I can see some really good things, but also like a lot of waste there.
Yeah, so their target is initially 3 to 5 high impact uses within the state. So they are looking at problems that currently exist, what residents of the state are having issues with. The other thing we just met with the subcommittee last week. The other thing that they mentioned is also trying to tie these services together. So having AI help you with an issue that you're having in the state, whatever that may be, but then needing to sign in and move to all these different services makes it almost not as worth it. So having a way to tie these services together, so you're not signing in 5 different times to 5 different AIs to 5 different services to get the help that you need, but having like a digital ID or some way of tying these services together to make sure that it's a seamless transition for you.
And I'll add on to that too. You know, to Chris's point, we are looking those high impact cases. We're looking at things that we can solve across agencies. When we're focused on individual agencies and their direct problems, I would say that falls more under our AI accelerator, which was also a part of the governor's executive order, which is also something that our team is leading and working on. And that's where we work directly with agencies. They had a requirement to submit at least 3 use cases to our department for us to go pursue very, you know, I wouldn't say niche because a lot of the things that they're bringing to us also apply to other agencies as well. But that's where we're really focusing on individual agencies and how we can better their services that are unique to them. Whereas I would say on the leadership council side, we're really thinking more about that broader vision. And I'll say actually on all of these, we are making sure, so we have a wonderful panel of experts that are serving on our leadership council now and providing us a lot of insight and feedback on what is feasible and what is the right approach. But we are also leaning on our partners in government, in agencies that also have expertise in these domains to help us. So governor's office has had, you know, a large hand in overseeing all the agencies and helping us to understand what are the right places to plug in so that we're not just kind of operating in these silos across agencies.
Yeah, I just would like to make a comment that I think that we're very much over magnifying the cases that have been, you know, tragic. I mean, there have been kids who, you know, have committed suicide, but then in the reports on that, the chatbot had tried to tell them 23 times or more with the suicide hotline. So, and then of course the company got sued and then it changed their, you know, LLM. So I think that we just should make sure that we don't kind of go down kind of that negative rabbit hole magnifying. I mean, school shooters are extremely rare as well. When you look at the population of students, you know, across the country, we should take care of that issue, but it is a fringe case. And this is kind of similar in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's a couple aspects to this. So first, I want to echo that there are positives to AI, right? And I think Vera did a really great job of highlighting, you know, especially in education, you know, it's a double-edged sword. There are some places that we maybe don't want AI replacing teachers, right? But there are some places where, you know, AI might be able to help struggling students in a classroom to get up to the level of their peers, right? So we want to make sure in everything that we're doing that we are echoing the good parts, the things that we think can be helpful, and then minimizing the risk from the things that we can be harmful. And, you know, to your point, you know, I think trying to, again, regulate the content is much harder. It runs into a lot of issues of freedom of speech and stuff, and it may not be as effective as perhaps trying to get people not to stay on these platforms for so long, right? Like in some of those cases, these children were on these platforms like a lot, and they were talking to these chatbots quite a lot, right? And so regardless of what the chatbot was telling them, perhaps if we were able to get the students off of those platforms sooner, there might have been a different outcome, right? And so I think that's where we're really trying to now do that understanding of what the most effective approach to this kind of legislation is so that we're not infringing on rights. We are allowing, some of the positive benefits of AI to come to the forefront, but we're taking away some of those addictive properties that lead people into some negative places.
Any other questions? Thank y'all so much. We appreciate it. Okay, so I'm gonna call a slight audible here and go ahead and before we do the break, we're gonna set up for our small group subcommittees. And so in order to do that, if you remember which subcommittee you were in last time, there's the student well-being, there's the physical health one, and then there's the student safety one. The student safety one will be down the hall where y'all met last time in room 131. And so each of the small groups are going to have their own experts to talk about different topics in those small groups. And what we'll do is we'll take a break. And when you come back from the break, you'll go straight to your small group, your small committee. And so you can take a 10-minute break. That'll get you back around 11:15. And then we'll do the small groups and they'll break at, we'll finish those up after an hour. And at 12:15, we'll come back in here for the final wrap up of the meeting. We do have one small group, the student safety one that needs to go into closed session. And so I need to get a motion for us to do that, to go into closed session. So I'll read the motion to everybody. The motion to go into closed session, whereas the Student Safety and Wellbeing Advisory Council that is required to discuss certain operational concepts of school safety and school security measures, whereas the council finds that the discussion of these matters require a closed session to preserve the confidentiality as outlined in GS 115C-105-54B. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the council hereby will go into closed session in accordance to GS 143-318.11A B1 to discuss the following: panic alarm system implementation, school risk management, and planning the SHREMS tool, and the state emergency response application. Let it be further resolved that the closed session will be conducted in accordance with the applicable laws and regulations governing the confidentiality of the meeting, and that the public and the media will be excluded from those portions of the meeting, and all discussions during the closed session shall be limited to the pertinent proposed topics that were mentioned before. The council shall reconvene in open session after the closed session is ended. So that's the motion that's on the table. I just need to have everybody signify that you're okay with that by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, so the student safety subcommittee will be in closed session. Everybody else is still in open session for your portions of the subcommittee. So take you a 10-minute break, then come back to your work groups. Again, physical health and well-being will both be in this room, and student safety will be in room 131, which is the exact same room that you met in last time. session, so we'll go back live. We're back live, so, we'll, just, any thoughts from any of the subcommittees that you want to bring to the big group real quick? We're ready for lunch, I see. Well, I do encourage you to please do the feedback sheet. It looks like this. Some of y'all have already done them, so, thank you. You can just leave it at your seat, and that way we can get the feedback from you. And that includes any, additional experts that you guys would like to come in for either your subcommittee or for the big group as a whole, that you'd like to hear from. And again, the goal here is by next year, we want to put out a final report that has any additional recommendations that we can put out for, student safety, student well-being, or physical health of our students. And those recommendations will be presented to the governor. And if there are other groups that you feel like we need to, specifically target in those conversations, then we will do that. As we bring in these different experts, the goal here is to kind of get their feedback and ideas about recommendations that we should be making moving forward. So, I appreciate everybody being here today. Please do the feedback form. A reminder that the next meeting is on May 18th. It will be from 9 to 11:30. That one will be virtual. You should have already gotten the calendar link for that one. And so make sure that you hold that one. And let's see. All the other meeting dates are going to be sent to you, and they're also in your packet. So please go ahead and hold those dates moving forward. And I think I have hit everything. Anything else that you know of done? Anybody else got anything new business before we close it up? All right, I appreciate everybody.